And that's what I've found is, and I know you feel the same way, more satisfying is when we live outside ourselves, because those are the two big commands, right? Love God and love people. All right, well, if we're going to love people, what kind of people? And where are they? And what's the cause we're going for? So we got to live outside ourselves. That's where the juice comes from. It's not from chasing the almighty dollar or anything else. That's the only place I've been able to find it.
It takes something a little more to lead with impact. I'm Lisa Nichols, author of Something Extra, and this podcast was inspired by our daughter Allie, whose additional chromosome has shaped how I see people in leadership. Each episode features conversations with inspiring leaders from around the world about what truly defines how they lead and serve others. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It helps more people discover the show. And if you'd like to go deeper, my book, Something Extra, is available on Amazon and through other major book retailers. I'm delighted to have Jeff Thomas on the show today. Jeff is an author, a podcast host, and the founder and CEO of Arcos Global Advisors. Well, Jeff Thomas, thank you so much for making the time today to be on the Something Extra podcast. I'm so delighted that we could make this work.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
It is great to be with you, too. And you're in Houston. I'm in St. Louis. Thank goodness for technology, right? Because it may not happen otherwise. But I have to give a shout out our mutual friend, Becca Spradlin. And I think maybe you've used her company a little bit with what we're doing. Becca is the author of Lead on Mission, the founder of On Mission Advisors. So thank you, Becca. Because Jeff and I may not have met one another if you hadn't have introduced us. But let's go back real quick. I think you may have told me this the first time we met, but I think I had forgotten it. I know you grew up in St. Louis. You grew up in Kirkwood, I think.
That's true. Went to Kirkwood High School, and so that's where I grew up. My sister still lives in St. Louis, and she's actually in St. Louis right now, coming to visit us this weekend. And so we try to visit each other. So I love St. Louis. Still a Cardinals fan. And so, you know, once a Cardinals fan, always a Cardinals fan.
Always a Cardinals fan,
right?
Right?
Loyal. So, you know, even after 35 years in Houston, I like the Astros, but it's better now that they're in different divisions, you know?
Right. You don't feel like you're betraying one, right?
Exactly.
Well, we're from Kentucky originally, Jeff. And when we moved to St. Louis, we just couldn't believe how passionate
You're right.
Cardinal Nation. I mean, it's just like
it is a thing.
People don't really understand until you're here. I mean, people are very, very passionate about their Cardinals.
My mother was a teacher, and she knew nothing about sports, but she had every red, like Cardinals dangling earrings. She would talk about who pitched last night. Like I grew up thinking that was normal. And then you move anywhere else and you're like, wait, it's like talking about the weather and the Cardinals. That's what you do in St. Louis.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you know what my parents talked about in Kentucky? The Kentucky Wildcats.
Yep. That's same idea.
I grew up in that. Idea. There was some passion around that as well.
Exactly.
But I know that you grew up in a mission-minded family, Jeff. In fact, your dad was a businessman. Yeah. And that's a funny story, turned pastor. But I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit more about your parents, because here's what I love. You said that they were the earliest set of shoulders that you stood on, and they were huge influences in your life.
Yeah, my parents, they both grew up in a rural Pennsylvania in the same little town, but didn't actually know each other. They were enough years apart that they got set up on a blind date, I think, when they were in college back home. And but I think that has something to do with it, just kind of from humble beginnings. But my dad, his father died when he was about 8 years old in a kind of an oil field as a result of an oil field accident. And he had 3 older brothers, and his mother was a very faithful woman, my grandmother, Thomas. And she had a teaching certificate, so she went to work teaching in a rural little schoolhouse there in Pennsylvania. And all 3 of my dad's older brothers all went off to the military just to kind of have some opportunity outside that small community. And my dad, by the grace of God, got a full scholarship to the University of Cincinnati in a kind of a work study engineering program. So he was a mechanical engineer, and then went to Purdue and got kind of what was then kind of the MBA for engineers, and started working as a mechanical engineer for International Harvester in Indiana. And when he was 29, the way I tell the story is that, well, he tells it this way, but I have a theory about it. Anyway, the pastor of the church they were going to there in Indiana asked my father if he'd ever considered going to seminary. And I just figured he asked every loyal 20-something member.
Sure.
And he finally got a yes. That's how I sort of imagine it. Not necessarily true. But anyway, my dad did say yes. He had considered it. And long story short, he ended up working as an engineer in the summers, and then going to Pittsburgh Theological Seminary full time. And he wrote he ended up writing his doctoral thesis on how to use business principles to run the church more efficiently. And so he kind of became a little bit of a Mr. Fix-It for the Presbyterian Church.
Right.
And so I've never felt called to work for the church directly, the local church, but I think we're all in ministry. And he sort of brought business principles to the church, and I find myself maybe much like you, often bringing hopefully biblical wisdom
principles to
business.
work.
And so anyway, we're all in ministry wherever we're planted. It doesn't really matter whether you're a vocational pastor or running a company like you or me and or whatever you're doing, digging ditches. You're still in ministry.
Absolutely.
So it's a combination of those two things.
Yeah, I fully believe that as well. Well, let's kind of get into what you did, because you did not follow your dad's footsteps.
That's right.
You didn't become an engineer. You didn't become a pastor. But you were a CPA, and I think you started at Arthur Andersen.
That's right.
Back in the day. But then at some point you pivoted and said, no, I want to be in the financial advising space, right? I think you had some clients, right, as a CPA that you kind of watch and you're like, I think I might like that side of the desk better. And here is the thing. I mean, Jeff was very, very successful by the world standards. I mean, you reached the top 2% on Wall Street, Jeff. Yet you said that there was a moment where that kind of success stopped satisfying you. When did you really first realize that something was missing?
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is that everybody knows that money can't buy happiness, but everybody wants to find out for themselves. and
That's a good
including
line.
me, unfortunately. So I just think that, I was always I loved playing tennis, and I loved specifically playing singles tennis.
Yes.
And while that's great for your health, I love the sport still. It's a solitary sport. It's an individual sport. And everything's a competition. Everything's a bracket. There's only one winner. I mean, even the great professional tennis players of today, if you see the behind the scenes shows on Netflix and this sort of thing, it shows how lonely they are. I mean, they have a team of people that sort of support them. So they talk about the team a lot, but at the end of the day, they're out there by themselves.
Yes.
And you really have to rely on yourself. And I think I had that kind of, just give me the ball and let me play, and let's see how far I can get. And so the wealth management business, I started my career at Payne Weber, that got bought by UBS, and then there for 8 years, and then also 17 years at Morgan Stanley before starting our own firm, Arcos. And so for 25 years, I mean, those firms do a very good job, like almost any sales organization, if you will, at creating competition within the sales force, right?
Yeah.
Like you knew exactly where you ranked every single day. With the class you started with, in your office, in your city, in your region, in your country, and globally. I mean, you knew every day you'd click on a button. It was literally called the scorecard button, and you knew where you're at. Well, that was like catnip to a singles tennis player. I mean, it was just another bracket.
Right.
What do you got to do to win? And so even though, I was raised in the church. I knew those principles. Boy, I just sort of really bought into that
Mhm.
competition, and it motivated me. I also did think, hey, if I could get 100 really good clients, that's sort of like my dad could know really 100 people. Like, I think you can sort of shepherd as a pastor, 100. So I'll
Right.
treat people well. I'll do
Right. And you did do that.
yeah, you do.
You
Yeah.
you
So
said you
you could
considered them your flock.
exactly. So you can take care
Mhm.
of them. So I'll treat them better than they would across the street, and we'll do a great job for them. But I also still have that motor of competition, and so really built a team. God kind of blessed that business pretty quickly. So we built a team pretty quickly, and even after about 5 years, I was in my about 31 years old, and there's a bit of competition. Well, that's probably like most maybe salespeople in different
Yes.
industries. Within the industry, one firm, there's a lot of recruiting from one firm to the next, and they're recruiting wars, and they'll sort of pay you to walk across the street and do the same business there. So Morgan Stanley came calling, and they wrote me a big 7-figure check to walk across the street and bring my clients over there. And this is in the year 2000 when they actually had checks. Like, it would
Right.
have been a wire today, right? But
Right.
today, then they literally handed me a check, this 7-figure check, and I remember the guy handing it to me, this regional manager, and he said, "Well, hey, what are you going to do with this money?" And I'm 31, and I thought, I have no idea. I sort of felt like the dog that caught the car. I really wanted, like it was just symbolic to me of success. I didn't really
Yeah.
have much use for it. Of course, there's things you can do, but there's only so many material things you could buy. And I just thought, well, if chasing that dollar, if I really thought that defines success for me, I certainly have something wrong. Like that, I know that's not right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I think I was chasing that version of success. I was holding that as more of an idol than I wanted to admit.
Right.
And I think that revealed it. That moment
Mhm.
revealed it to me. Like, what is my purpose? It's not chasing that check. So what is it? So
Yes.
I didn't really, so I
You have
didn't know
an
really how
answer.
to answer that question. So that
Right.
was sort of my crisis.
Yeah.
And so that sort of led me down a trail of trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna get into that.
Yeah.
I read this where you said you got the golden egg, but what you figured out was the golden egg was hollow.
Right.
And, I mean, Jeff, you're not alone on that,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, I've gotten off track before and what my real purpose is, and you can be chasing those things, but boy, that's exhausting for one thing, right? And it really comes up
It
empty.
is.
It's not
It does come
fulfilling
back in.
because then it's the next thing, right?
When
Um,
does it get satisfied? There's always
right.
somebody ahead of you.
It's
There's a bigger
right.
number. Like they survey people and they're
Yeah.
like, well, who's wealthy? Even if somebody's got $100 million, like,
Mhm.
well, it's the person with 200 million.
Yeah,
It's always, if you got 100 grand, it's the person with 200 grand.
right.
I mean, it never ends. You can't. It's unattainable in
Yes.
terms of it's just a false little
Yeah.
g god,
Yeah,
frankly.
I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, this is all happening, right?
Right.
And then in 2005, and I love this, and I'd love for you to talk about it at the end of your book. Okay, so Jeff has a book, and we're going to talk a lot about this, but it's called Trading Up, Moving from Success to Significance on Wall Street. But you know what was kind of an interesting thing for me to learn about you, Jeff, it's always trading up, kind of what we just talked about.
Mm,
There's a
mhm.
next, right?
That's
You
so
get
true.
one house and you trade up to a bigger house. And
Right.
I mean, Dolly just seems like a sweetheart. That's your wife. But
Yeah.
before Dolly, you were trading up in women.
I mean,
You
you just,
know?
yeah. There's just nothing on the earth satisfies. You got to have something
Yeah.
eternal that you're chasing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So this kind of did bring you to this crisis. And you said, really during this season, you turned back to scripture. You kind of
Yeah.
turned back to your roots, right? You joined Bible Study Fellowship,
Yeah.
BSF.
Yeah.
Wonderful, very systematic way of
Yeah.
studying the scripture, right? And yeah, I'm going to read something here. Let me see. Let me get my readers on. But you said that you started reading the Bible and the rich young ruler really bugged you.
Yeah, I did.
It's this whole story about the rich young ruler and, the
It
rich
still
young
kind of
ruler.
bugs me, to be
It still
honest.
kind of bugs you, to be honest. Well, hey, listen, God's okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's not afraid of our questions,
yeah,
right? He's not
exactly.
afraid of them. But, this whole story for our listeners who don't know, this rich young ruler comes to Christ and says, hey, what do I need to do to get into heaven? And Christ said, well, Jesus said, the commandments.
Right.
And starts ticking them off. And the guy says, well, I've done all of this. I've done all of this since I was a kid. Then Jesus comes back with the knockout punch and says, you still lack one thing. And he proceeds to tell him to give everything he owns to the poor
Right.
and follow him. And, you could probably guess what the rich young ruler did. He turned
Flips
around.
off.
Yeah, he turned around and went the other way.
Exactly.
But you said, as I read this story again in 2005, a new revelation came to me. Jesus isn't trying to tell us that all we have, we need to sell everything, as I believe for so long. He's telling us that he wants us to prioritize him above all else.
Yeah.
I finally understood that in this story. He was looking into the heart of the person he was talking to specifically, because it could have been another person, Jeff. And that person's heart was in a different place, and Jesus would have said something different. But the reality is, it was about who are you putting first, right?
Exactly. I
And
mean, what if he was with the chariot maker, and the guy's like, "But sell all your chariots, or get a different job." He's like, "But I'm great at making chariots.
I'm great at
I'm a
making chariots.
chariot maker. I make the Rolls Royce of chariot." Like your car, your possessions,
Yes,
relationships, any of these things can be idols.
absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a golden calf.
Right. Right.
You
But it
know, it
often is.
doesn't-
But it often is.
yes, that's true. That is
It
true.
often
That
is.
is true. But I love this because then in your book, you talk about, so you said, I asked myself, well, if I'm not in charge and Jesus is in charge, what does this mean for my life? And you likened it back to tennis. And you
Mhm.
said, I'd been acting as though I was a great singles tennis player, when in fact, God was quietly playing doubles with me, setting me up to hit easy overheads and waiting for me to acknowledge him. I just thought that was so beautiful. And that's really kind of where you came to,
Yeah.
and kind of changed your whole life from there, and even what you're focused on today. So talk about this and tell about Ron Blue, because you said you described a moment when you were with Ron Blue and you heard God say, now listen, not in an audible voice. I've never heard, just for
Yeah.
our listeners, I've never heard God, Lisa, this is, but in your spirit, right?
Yeah.
You heard him say, I want you to scale what Ron Blue started. Can you tell us that story a little bit?
Yeah, man. That was honestly, that's probably put me over the edge to have to write that down. That moment was so powerful. So I really hope God communicates to each of us. I just think it's so cool, individually, uniquely, and I think it's always available. But I think I was tuning him out. Like I literally wrote in the book about, like, in my 20s, like I would turn up the music just because I could feel his I wanted to do things my way. And I was afraid he was going to send me to Africa or something. That's part of the rich young ruler. Like, I didn't want to go. Okay. But the truth is, he will give you an assignment different from what you might think generally, but it's also going to be way more awesome than anything you could come up with. Joyous. Doesn't mean money and like material success, but it does mean joy and intimacy with him. And so, the way I tell the story of that moment, kind of leading up to it, like my 20s, I was just kind of putting my head down, trying to do things my way and asking God to bless my plans, which is comical.
Yeah.
As though I was in charge.
Yes,
He's always in charge, whether we acknowledge it or not.
Yes.
Okay. In my 30s, I basically repented of that, started doing real Bible study for myself to really try to understand the word, not trade on maybe my parents' knowledge or just a Sunday school version of knowledge, but kind of get into the word. And so I started really feeling like I understood the word better, and I really worked very hard to put him on the throne of my life. Right, it's still a daily struggle, but
Absolutely.
but trying to get there. And so, sort of at 40, that's when this moment happened with Ron, who is an amazing mentor of mine. He had asked me to be a coach for this Kingdom Advisor coaching program. It's a nonprofit that he started that helps financial advisors implement biblical wisdom into their practice. Well, anyway, it was like a once a quarter thing in Atlanta for 3 years. And so, in the late 2000s, I said, hey, man, I'll do it, but will you disciple me? And then we'll go into that coaching session. And so I would fly into Atlanta early and we'd have these sessions. And it was like after 3 years of this, and, you spend a lot of time with anybody. My folks here at our company, I'm sure yours are the same way. They're like, oh, yeah, we've heard that story from Lisa before. Like,
many times.
You tend to repeat the same stories, but they're important, I think, for vision and these sort of things. Anyway, one of the stories that Ron always tells is that he's really a visionary, not an operator necessarily. And I just thought there's just this amazing guy who started a wealth management firm that has biblical knowledge behind it, but somebody needed to really scale that idea. And I just felt God said, well, I want you to do that. And that's a very general idea. He didn't say start a firm. He didn't, it was just, and then it was like an assignment when I sort of heard him say that. I did actually think it was audible. And I was like, Ron, did you hear that? And he's like, no. So I was like, okay, it wasn't audible, but I heard it. Like, right. Okay. And I don't even know the theology of all that. I don't need to know. I'm like the blind guy that I heard it and I'm trading on it okay, for the rest of my life until I get another assignment. Yes. So, and then I was like, yeah, but I'm not some serial entrepreneur. I said it felt like a loving assignment, custom made loving assignment. So I loved that part. I felt really intimate. But then I had shot back with this sort of mental conversation with God where I was like, okay, but I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I don't know how to just start a business to do that. I don't know how to do it. And he goes, well, like a sweet grandfather. I've got 3 grandkids now, like chuckled. I felt like he was chuckling. He's like, I know you don't know how to do it. He goes, I'll do it. You wake up and take instructions and give me the glory. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I was like, amazing idea. I have no clue. Oh, good. You'll do it. Yeah. So I was like, no, let's do that trade. So anyway, at the time I was at Morgan Stanley. And so we sort of, put ourselves into that, and maybe we can talk about that path from there on. But that was, I just think that's available for everybody. That's what I'd like people to hear. Yeah. That is available for everybody. It's just, I was drowning out my antenna in my 20s. And then I started kind of working on tuning it in, and I have to tune it every day or the noise gets distracting. Right. But if you're willing to tune in, he will give you a cool assignment that it might be scary by human standards, but it's going to be amazing if you lean into it. Yeah, so more than we could hope or imagine. 100%. Right? More than we can hope or imagine, Jeff. Well, that's a great stopping point. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Jeff Thomas on the Something Extra podcast.
Hey there. In a challenging business climate like this, savvy leaders look to technology to find an edge. This can mean the difference between staying ahead of the curve or playing catch-up. It's time to collaborate with the highly skilled experts at Technology Partners. Our team of technologists draws upon decades of experience for your project, with each bringing a passion for solving problems and a track record of success. How can we help you overcome your biggest technology challenges? Visit technologypartners.net to book a free consultation with one of our leaders.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with Jeff Thomas. So, Jeff, you kind of left us there. What happened? You were at Morgan Stanley, and you felt this call of God. You need to scale what Ron Blue has done. 2017, you left this $1 billion book of business, which had to be a little bit scary. But again, you were trusting God on it, and you founded Arcos Global Advisors. Tell us about that story.
Well, we call it progressive revelation. And so when I got that sort of kingdom assignment to scale something to honor God in this business, I was already at Morgan Stanley. I had started this little Christian focus group where I was hosting a little call, almost like a little Bible study once a month. And it wasn't officially recognized. It's just sort of a little grassroots group. And so I thought, well, okay, let's see how much of the culture at that firm we could affect. And so we got it recognized by the firm. I had some friends help build that, and we got it up to about 600 members. And long story short, you can read the book for some more details about how it kind of went down. But at the end of the day, it did become kind of a culture issue. And it's a public company, and that means the public owns the shares, and that culture is going to reflect the public. And most of the public is not really for publicly proclaiming maybe Bible verses. I wish it was, but and unfortunately, it's a bit of a minority. So anyway, that period sort of came to an end, and I knew that the culture was not going to flip really fully to a biblical culture, and so. That's the place I had felt called to, and I was on my knees the next day because the whole program was ask God what to do and then go do it and give him the credit. And so I was stymied. I was like, yeah, we went as far as we could here. What's the next step, Lord? I don't know what to do. And I felt like he was leading us to start a new company from scratch with those principles as the basis. And so I really, so things have evolved from there. And we've had progressive revelation about how to grow that business over the last 9 years.
Right. I like that. Progressive revelation.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've got a friend that says he'll give you enough light for the step you're on.
Exactly. It's the manna principle.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
It gives you the enough for today. And don't try to stuff yourself. And you can, I don't think he's mad at us for having 3, 5, 10-year plans and all that. Like when I started, I had this, the spreadsheet up, A1 blinking, and I was like, okay, God, we're going to, help me write the business plan. Let's start with the growth rate. What's the growth rate going to be? And he's like, yeah, you're not putting me on a spreadsheet.
That's so
knock yourself out. But you're not putting me on a spreadsheet, buddy. I mean, I'm not mad at you for having one, but I'm not a spreadsheet guy.
His economy is totally different than ours.
Exactly.
Right? His economy is totally different. Well, it's Arcos, Arc and Telos. Tell me about that, because they mean something. Each of those words.
Yeah, Arcos. It's a made up word. When we were researching branding and this sort of thing, I heard a great talk about it should be 2 syllables. You can call your dog that, and then you tell the world what it means. Okay, so Google. Come here, Google. Right. So Arcos, 2 syllables. You tell the world what it means. Ark as in Noah's Ark, let's say. So I always say, obviously that's a safe place. It's also, here's my favorite part about it. Remember how God downloaded blueprints to Noah? I mean, exactly how to build the ark.
Exactly how to build the ark.
Right? And so that was sort of my experience is like, in that case, he sort of downloaded all of it because he had a very specific project.
Yes.
But for most of it's more progressive, but he'll still download those plans. If you'll ask him what those plans look like for you, they may not be all in one time. For me, it's been progressive, but he will give you those, a sort of a kingdom assignment, as we talked about earlier. So download plans. I used to say, even if they sound nuts. Now I usually just say, and they will sound nuts.
They will sound nuts.
They will. They sound nuts. Everybody thought Noah was crazy. Okay, so download plans from God, and then telos is the back end of Arcos, A-R-K-O-S, and that's what Jesus said on the cross, which is my purpose is finished. So Ark, kind of a safe place to finish your purpose, download plans from God, and let's go execute. So I think what we see in our business is an industry that kind of jams people into a template. We can talk more about that, but it's we don't want templates, and we don't want estate planning attorneys or anybody else telling us how to do things. The tax stuff comes last. Don't worry about the tax code first. What is God telling you to do? And then be tax smart about it.
Yeah.
So a lot of those plans, we try to give oxygen to those crazy God plans. And then let's go do it.
Oh, you just set me up. That was the perfect segue, because I was going to talk to you. You talk about putting people's narratives before the numbers.
Yes.
And, that's exactly what you're talking about there, connecting. Well, I'll let you talk about it, but what changes when an advisor or a leader start there instead of starting with the numbers and starting with the KPIs and the metrics, putting people's narratives before that?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of my favorite phrases, narrative before numbers. And I know people can relate to this. I think we've all had this experience if you've gone to see, and forgive me, there are amazing estate planning attorneys out there. They're great at the taxes. I don't mean to pick on them necessarily, but I'm just going to use the estate planning process as a proxy for this. Okay. Normally, no matter what amount of money you've got, if you walk in to an estate tax attorney, they're just, there's a big questionnaire. Most people just want to get, hey, we're going on a trip across the pond. We just got to get something written down here. And, and it's pretty complicated. There's, like most industries, like if you were trying to tell me about your business, you could acronym me to death and I would have no idea what you're talking about. Right. Yeah. Then you're trying to just get this will and all these trusts or whatever done as fast as possible with as little headache. So people tend to kind of get jammed into a template where you just divide your net worth by the number of kids you have. And if the estate is taxable, you buy an insurance policy to pay the taxes and you're done. And while that might be appropriate for you, it might not. And the only point for us is we say, time out. Before we start jamming documents, can we please slow down and listen? Again, what is God downloading to you? It may fit into that template, but it may not. And if it doesn't, there are some really, really fun things you could do, especially if there's, oftentimes we find with our clients that there is something philanthropic, that a cause,
Yes.
You have a Down syndrome daughter who this podcast is named for. Okay. God gave you her. He gave your daughter, you and your husband. And it's been a blessing to everyone and to the rest of us who get to participate in the things you've learned. So that is a unique thing. God takes all of us through unique opportunities and challenges.
Yes.
And what are the causes that we care deeply about, that, what breaks our heart? So usually there are some other things that can be included in your sort of ongoing financial plan and your estate plan that are beyond yourself. And that's what I've found is, and I know you feel the same way, more satisfying is when we live outside ourselves, because those are the two big commands, right? Love God and love people. Right. Well, if we're going to love people, what kind of people? And where are they? And what's the cause we're going for? So we got to live outside ourselves. That's where the juice comes from. It's not from chasing the almighty dollar or anything else. That's the only place I've been able to find it. And
fulfillment.
So all we're trying to do at Arcos is match up those plans. We're not trying to tell them what to do. What is the narrative of what is God telling them to do? And then let's just match the finances with the plan. Simple.
Yeah. Right.
But not jam a template into it. So that's another thing that I think about. Yeah.
I love that. And I think it was you. I think, Jeff, I do read a lot and I meet a lot of people. I'm pretty sure this was you. And if it wasn't you, I'm going to still credit you.
It's fine.
You can take credit
if it's good, I'll take credit. Yeah.
But, I think it was you that said, like, money, honestly, you said the two greatest commands, love God, love people, right? And I think it was you that said money's just a tool.
Exactly.
Money is a tool to love others better, right? And whether that is, I don't know, whether that's helping people with special needs or whether it's building a, new hospital or whatever it may be. You've been given this money. You're a steward of the money, not an owner, right? Yeah, you're a steward of that money. And it's like, it's a way for us to love others better and love them more. And I think that's just such a beautiful way of looking at, of money. So let's talk about, and we've talked about this, but I'd love for you just to, and we've talked because you were talking about the narratives, but you talk about generosity. And I know that generous giving, and I mean, you've been a part of a lot of those type of movements in that, right? Jeff, and you're more than welcome to talk about those if you want, but you said that really generosity isn't about twisting somebody's arm, but watering a seed. You were just talking about that. So maybe whatever that narrative is, let's figure out how we can water that seed. And, but what does that look like in real life conversations with clients?
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Be able to just, tell a story or two. We have, I'm remembering a husband and wife that came in, and the husband just is a gifted business guy. His wife is super administratively talented, and also they have several causes that they just love to support. And so, one of the things that often when people come in, because they know we do a lot of philanthropic planning, and so they'll usually have tactical questions, about, should I open a donor advised fund or a foundation? They'll usually lead with a question like that, and we're always like, okay, good tactical question. Time out. Write that down. We'll get back to that. But again, let's go back to the narrative, right? Okay, what is God telling you? Tell us more about the business. What are your passions? What are the causes? And so in answering, this question, even about the structure of, do you do a donor advised fund? And there's some advantages there. But like in a donor advised fund, you can donate appreciated stock and this sort of thing. And it's, it can be more anonymous about where you give and this sort of thing. Where a foundation, it's like an entity. It's like another little business to run, right? But you can cut checks directly to buy a sandwich or, whatever. And so in most cases, a donor advised fund is less complicated and that sort of thing. In this couple's case, it was just obvious from her professional history that she'd be amazing at running that entity and would love to do that and wanted to write checks to certain things that weren't just nonprofits to support people. And so just by hearing the narrative of what their skills were and what the causes they wanted to support, and just even the way the cash would flow, they didn't have a lot of appreciated assets to donate at that moment, but cash flow. So like the narrative always informs. So now we use the right sort of tax structure to do it. And to watch people, they're just hesitant to share these crazy Noah plans with people. Like, right. and because early when I tried to do this 20 years ago, before I kind of knew how to navigate these conversations, we had a business owner who had become a believer kind of later in life. And so it started becoming more generous. But his accountant that he'd had forever, outside accountant, was not on board. Okay, with this sort of generosity. Anyway, we sort of got together and redesigned based on what he wanted to do, he and his wife. This new estate plan had all this generosity in it. And we sort of took it to the new accountant, and she brought her lawyer friend, and they were going to kind of paper it, right? And he started, the business owner started sharing what he wanted to do. And I'll never forget staring at the accountant. And she was sort of jaw slack, and all she could utter was, why would anyone give away that much money? And I just think that is how much of the world thinks. Right. And so it kind of blew up the deal. And so now we've had to learn, hey, you got to be careful who's in the room. Whoever's in the room, you need to empower them to be part of the plan. There are things that I did wrong in that, leading that process, that we try not to make those mistakes again. But I tell that to show the hostility that's available. I think if you've shared these ideas with advisors who are not aligned with your worldview, and I think you need alignment in worldview, and then you also need technical competence. Okay, you need both.
Right.
But and it doesn't have to be our company. But I mean, that's one piece of advice I would give.
That's a good piece of advice, because if you do not have the same worldview, they are going to look at you like you're crazy, and they're going to probably advise you not to do these things, right?
We've given 30% of Arcos to our foundation, and I was interviewing lawyers to paper our side of the deal, and I couldn't find a lawyer in Houston that wouldn't try to talk me out of it. And I finally I called a friend of mine in Memphis who did a similar thing, and he said, just use my lawyer. So I called his lawyer, and I have to go from Houston to Memphis to find a lawyer. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so I called her. She's amazing, Marianne, and I was telling her the story. Hey, every lawyer in Houston I talked to is trying to talk me out of doing this. I will. God's telling me to do it. I'm going to do it. Like I can't have that in my ear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Marianne says, she starts laughing. I go, Marianne, why are you laughing? She goes, well, truth is, I tried to talk Alan, my friend, out of doing it 30 years ago. Okay. She goes, but I've come around since then. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You have to really work at finding aligned advisors who also have the technical competence. But don't listen to unaligned people. Listen to the guy who's got your back the most.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
then just
So
go
how's
find
it worked out for Alan?
Well, that's an amazing story. He's in his 60s. Over 40 years ago, he was graduating from college, and he and his wife were just getting married. He's an engineer, and his parents had two little cranes that they would rent out from what he calls the world headquarters of their spare room in their house. And he made a deal. His wife wanted to go into the mission field when they got married. He wanted to take over the family business of two cranes. And so their compromise was they'd take over the business, but they would pay themselves what the mission board would have paid them. And so they would give away anything else. Okay. So they sort of set this sort of financial finish line right out of college. Okay. The first year, actually, his brother was part of this deal. The first year they made $50,000 more than the mission board would have paid, and they gave that away. I mean, that's pretty good. 30 years ago for a couple of 20 somethings, $50,000, you know?
Yes.
Well, now the business is doing, fast forward 40 years. Okay. They've kept to that game plan. And the business does $1 billion. It's the fourth largest crane company in America. And they're giving away, somewhere north of $60-70 million a year, 50% of the profits, and reinvest 50%. And frankly, God has just blessed that business. I think Alan and his brother are amazing business people. They've built an amazing team. They have wild talent. But I don't know that Alan or anybody in the management team would deny that there is something God math about what has happened to that business to continue to grow. And they have 6 committees to give it away. The 6 committees cover 6 parts of the world doing amazing work all over the globe. Alan Barnhart Crane's the name of the company. It's just so I've seen those kind of things. God doesn't have to bless you financially in that way, but the joy that Alan and his wife have, she gets to travel the world the way she always wanted to as a missionary, funding these things.
Yeah, funding these different causes.
She's probably funding 1,000 missionaries, and getting to do life with them, and all these other people on the committees. And so anyway, there's just Alan doesn't pay himself squat, but he's one of the happiest people you've ever met. And I think that's ultimately what people are looking for, right?
That's
Where's that joy?
Good. Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, gosh, I've got a lot more, but we're running out of time here. Let me ask you this. You've got your wife, Dolly, and you've got 2 daughters. You've got Allie and Sophie.
I do have an Allie.
Yeah, now I do have an Allie.
That's right.
So that connected us instantaneously too. When you think about your daughters and generations that are going to follow you, because you've got 3 grandkids now, what do you hope that they learn from how you've chosen to live your life and lead your life?
Great question. I think we have 12 principles at Arcos. They're on our website, but if anybody's interested. But one of them is empower, don't control. And that's the first thing that popped into my brain when you said that was there is a tendency for me, and for I think most parents, to say, there's different stages of parenting, right?
Yes.
And as both of my girls are adults, and the number one thing, of course, that I wish for them is to follow the Lord, because I know where that leads. That leads to a good place. Okay. So that's number one. Yeah. But the way they do that and the causes they might support, God's going to take them. We have some shared experience as a family, but my oldest daughter, she was just in the office for a little birthday celebration for one of our employees and this sort of thing. And she had her little baby with her. And God is taking her. I had 2 girls. She's got 3 boys already. Like she's got a different, they will support different things. They will have different callings and causes. And so I just want them to know where the source of truth and joy is, and to pursue that without me prescribing for them what that might look like. And I think that is not a natural thing for me as a father, or most of us as parents.
Right. Right. No, you're exactly right.
And I think it's at a certain age, one of my friends always gives this talk about, the stages of parenting. You're a caretaker, and then a cop, and then a coach. And eventually when they're grown, hopefully you're a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, consultants only give advice when asked.
Right.
That's a bit of a challenge.
That is
for
a
most
challenge.
of us.
As a parent. Yes, it is.
So allowing space for that empowerment of how can we use all of our relational capital, our spiritual capital, our financial capital to help them pursue their calling.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. And it's likely to be different from ours.
Sure. Yeah. That's good advice. Good advice, Jeff. Well, I've just got one more question, and we're going to talk about something extra.
Something Extra.
So in
with Lisa
2019,
Nichols
you wrote
is a
your book,
Technology Partners
and I want to
production.
camp
Copyright
out for a
Technology
minute
Partners
on
Inc.
this
2019.
concept of trading.
For show notes or to reach Lisa,
I just love
visit
that.
tpi.co/podcast.
Kind of near
Don't
the
forget
end
to
of the
leave
book.
a review on Apple Podcasts,
I'm just going to read.
Google Play,
I'm going to read a little
or
bit of
wherever
that.
you
So
listen.
too much of my life has already been spent trying to fill the God-sized vacuum that is inside of me. Was that Descartes? I think that was Descartes that said that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a God-sized vacuum
Exactly.
that only he can fill. People try to fill it with all kinds of things. You said that tennis wouldn't do it. Our Armani suit couldn't do it. Promotions, benefits couldn't do it. Money certainly couldn't do it. Fantastic job. Great wife. We may be thinking all of those things could fill that hole.
All good things.
All good things, right? All good things. But you said, surely by God's grace, I've discovered the way out of unhappiness and lack of satisfaction brought inevitably by mere success and prosperity. It's that this whole book and the greatest discovery in my life is about you have to trade up. You have to trade up from success to significance. You have to trade up from a life that is self-directed to one that is God-tethered. Trade up from seeing one's job as a money field to seeing it as a mission field. Trade up from enduring life to attacking it. Most of all, trade up our tired, worn out, wannabe gods for the true living God. I just thought that was a beautiful way to just end the sentiment of what this book is about. So I would highly encourage our listeners, go get the book. I know that it'll be a blessing to you. So, Jeff, this is called Something Extra. What do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs?
I think, we're as we're recording this, we're in the final stages of football season, for college and the pros, and it just seems that every great coach talks about the fundamentals, like embrace the process. It's true in business. It's true in sports. Embrace the process and don't obsess over the outcome. So I think for me, the most important fundamental that I was missing in my 20s and since my 30s has completely changed my life is the fundamental of just spending a little bit of time with God every morning. I wake up, maybe it's just me, okay, but I don't think so. I wake up thinking about my agenda, the things I have to do, everything's on me. I got to get my to-do list done. I got to, all these strategic things I, okay, is what I wake up thinking, okay? And if I can spend just a little bit of time in God's word, it's amazing. My blood pressure literally falls. And I feel like all those pressures fall off of me and my priorities change.
Absolutely.
And so like if a baseball analogy, it's like, I don't know how these guys hit 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I don't get it. Like how your brain, well, the only way that can happen is doing a lot of cage work, before you're in the real game. So that you have a grooved swing.
Yeah.
Like it's cage work. Like we gotta get our
spending time. That's cage work.
Get your swing ready. So when the world throws you fastballs,
right,
you're not whiffing them.
Yeah,
your swing is a little on plane. If you know what I mean.
Oh, I love that, Jeff. That is so
I
good.
think that's a simple idea.
Love it. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I have absolutely loved this time.
This has been great.
So I know our listeners are going to benefit so much from just hearing from you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Lisa. It's been a joy.
Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. To learn more about this week's guest, check out the show notes at tpi.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving us a review. Thank you for listening to Something Extra.